Welcome, everybody. Just before we begin this, I'd just like to introduce Mark Allen, who's the Economic Development Manager at Brent Council. Just a quick introduction before we get on with the main webinar. So, Mark, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alan. Morning, everyone. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you very much for signing up to these sessions. I hope that you find them really productive for you and your business. Brent has used some of his UK SPF allocation to commission Branduin to deliver this programme in an attempt to support community wealth building and to keep local spend within the borough. I'm sure you'll hear more about this from our partners shortly, but these training sessions culminate in a business summit on the afternoon of Thursday, the 20th of March, held here at Brent Civic Centre. That will be themed on community wealth building, and it'll also include a meet the buyer element, where attendees will be able to discuss upcoming contract opportunities with both the council and local anchor institutions who will be in attendance, and hopefully you'll be able to discover some opportunities where they can put this training that you're going to go through over these coming weeks into practice. But without further ado, I will hand you back to Alan to commence the training. If you need anything from Brent, just reach out to us and I'll drop our email address in the chat. But for now, thank you very much, and over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome again. Good morning, everybody, to the Brent Supplier Ready programme. And this introduction to bid writing, a foundation, this is to set the scene effectively and give you some pointers as to how this works. The whole idea of the entire programme really is to remove some of the mystery and maybe some of the preconceived ideas some people might have about how this actually works and how to make it work for you and your business and the opportunities, take advantage of the opportunities that are there. So just very quickly about myself, I'm involved in bids and tenders for over 10 years now, including 5 years at Capita when I was both sides of the fence, both writing tenders and responding to tenders that we received. And I'm based in the north of England. We're looking to expand this fabulous Fit to Bid programme, and I run a private consultancy in this space as well. So the idea behind this is, like I said, that can give you a competitive edge. And these two first of the three webinars, the introduction to bid rotation, which gives you this, like I said, a foundation. It says some basic information about how this works and how you can take advantage of it and how to understand what the buyers, what these new kind of customers, if you've not dealt with the public sector before, how they operate and what they want to see. And then the advanced one actually gets into how you start putting a bid response together based upon, as it says there, best practice and excellence in selling, because it is still selling. It's just maybe different selling than you've done previously. And these are the elements that we'll got to cover. We've got a lot to fit in. I will try very hard to get through the content here and explain, and feel free to put questions in the chat as we go along. But I will try and put in a Q&A at the end to answer any specific questions. I'm sometimes not very good at this, is because there's a lot to get through, so I will endeavour to hit the time. I'll be keeping a close watch on it. But anyway, so we will look at why organisations go to tender, what they look for, and then really the essentials, what getting the basics right, what that actually means, and what we look as the golden rules, which is understanding the what's being asked, answering the questions, confirming the selling points, providing benefits and value and evidence to prove what you can do, researching your potential customer, and then how you write a compelling, bespoke, accurate response, and what a response actually looks like. So that's a quick little talk about Branduin, the sales. Branduin are a business support and advice service covering quite a breadth of area. And they work with, as you can see there, I'm not going to read out everything on this slide, but local authorities, chambers of commerce, etc. And I've been doing this for some years now. I'm very well placed and very skilled. And I personally am very proud to be involved with working with Branduin. So they run several different programs to support businesses. Obviously, the focus of this one is contracts with essentially with local authorities. But there's lots of different areas that they support. And their partnerships and collaborators can say that we're not going to go through all of these, but look, you can see it's quite a breadth of relationships that Branduin have built over the years, which they're rightly proud of. There are several programs, as I referenced. Fit to Bid, this one here under Community Wealth, which Mark referred to. That's the program we're talking about here. But as you can see, there are lots of other areas that you can work with brand doing under. But for now, we're going to work on the Fit to Bid program. And Fit to Bid is also proudly on the government website as an approved supplier and has been since 2022. This proves the quality and delivery of the program, and is again is something brand new and proud of. But really, it's a reflection of what the content is and what you can make out of it. I would say before we start, like a lot of things, you'll get out of this what you put in. It is a funded. Remarkably, it is a funded program, so you're not paying for it. But that does not take away from the value of it. There's huge value here, and it's a collaborative process between brand new and yourselves. Put the effort in, and you will get something out of it, that I can guarantee. There are, obviously, this is Brent, but you can see we've delivered programs in all these different areas as well. So we've got some experience in this area, which you can take advantage of. So, key supply chain issues for small businesses such as yourself. So probably top of the shop is insufficient experience in the public sector. And we're going to take away some of the mystery around that so you understand. The belief that the industry is dominated by big companies that lock SMEs out. It's an understandable belief, but it's not accurate. Coming from a corporate background, I can tell you one of the reasons why large companies win contracts is because they're in it. They have teams that do nothing but respond to contracts. But the belief that somehow it's a kind of boys' club, for want of a better phrase, and that big companies dominate, that's not the case. Increasingly, the playing field is being leveled. There's new legislation coming in this year that makes it that little bit better as well. But the fact is, a good response can win. And this is one area where you can take on a large company and win because your response is better and is more accurate and is better put together. So you have a seat at the table. You have a right to go into this market and be very successful. Other areas you need to go into, your business is largely unknown to public sector buyers. Well, you need to reach out, and we will be talking about that. And part of this program is giving you the ability to do that, including the fabulous Meet the Buyer events, which we'll get to later on. Associated to that is business owners can't reach the right people. There are ways of doing that from research. Lack of a proactive marketing strategy. Well, you might have one in your commercial world, but in the public sector, then it needs to be slightly different. And we'll go into that. No client reviews, testimonials, essential. You need to look at having reviews, testimonials, case studies, all within the last year, hopefully. But they prove what you can do. And you sometimes will be asked for references as well. But you really need to put some work on that because that's proof that you can do what you're doing. It's hugely valuable, especially if you're in a crowded market against others. You need to use that as your differentiator. Unable to devote adequate time and resources to plan properly. Again, we can support and help you with that. That's not going to be the focus of this particular webinar, but this is something where you do need to put the effort in, but there are ways of sorting this. So you put a bid library together and you can work from there. And we will get into that more into the second webinar next week. Limited knowledge about the tendering process. Well, that's why we're all here. We're all here to improve our knowledge on the tendering process and take away some of the mystery of it, like I said. You're inexperienced in developing and writing strong bids. In some ways, that's not a bad thing because we're going to teach you good habits to potentially avoid bad ones. And no idea what to put into response to make it a winning one. Yeah, so we can get into lots of all this. It will be quite high level for this hour, but it should set the scene for the next session, which will go into a lot more detail. So the process of submitting a winning bid, you engage with procurement, understand who the procurement people are at your local authority. We have an online bid capability assessment questionnaire and report. So it's basically a form. You should have received a link for that. Complete that because that gives two things. One is it gives us an idea of where you are in the process and what your experience is or isn't. But also, answering those questions will make you think about the things you need to know. It's a really, really valuable thing to do. So take some time in order to complete that because it will also go into your 2 one-to-one sessions so we understand where you are in the process and will help us help you. Through that, you will learn your bidding skills, develop your bidding skills. You'll understand how to turn that into sales enablement in this market, and along with tender advice, to actually take you, how do you do your response, your initial response, and your invitation to tender. Then you also there, it's kind of hidden on my screen now because of the way it's on. But yeah, the Meet the Buyer event, which is hugely valuable. I'll probably end up mentioning that several times in this presentation, because the Meet the Buyer event, to be in the same room as the procurement teams from these tier one, which is like large businesses and local authorities, is hugely valuable to build those relationships. Something that's very, very difficult to do on your own. Brand doing gives you that that opportunity, and please take advantage of it. So the benefits of the program: every one of you will have an assessment of bid writing skills, so we understand where you are, and what you know and what you don't know, and give you the skills that you need, along with the knowledge to implement what we see as best practice. There's the Community Wealth Building Summit and Meet the Buyer events, the Wealth Building Summit that Mark already referenced, and the Meet the Buyer events, where you are able to gain skills and meet people and build a network. Access to confidential one-to-one tender advice sessions. So these are obviously the information we're going to give in these webinars is high level and is given to all of you. So it's something you can all benefit from. Your one-to-one sessions, however, are bespoke to you and your business, your market, and where you are. So again, hugely valuable and really interesting conversation to set you on the right path. You receive assistance. Okay, yeah, thank you. Assistance to submit expressions of interest, which is the first stage. And again, we won't get into massively on what all these different things are in this webinar, but next week we'll be listing through all these, what an expression of interest is, what an invitation to tender is, etc., etc. Support with writing and submitting winning bids. It's a learned skill, and something that we've got good at over the years by learning, and we can share our experience to get you further down the path. And get so you're skilled at this. And once you learn how to do this, it's a repeatable exercise. A completed tender business model canvas, that's something as a result of your one-to-ones, where we properly understand where you are and what give you a plan of action to move forward in this market. A value proposition designed for procurement. That really is a case of looking at your business from your customer's point of view. Essentially, what value do you provide? What added value do you provide? And this is very much about benefits, not features. And then you'll have engagement throughout the program, and regular and ongoing feedback. So it's a hugely supportive process. And like I said, I urge you to take as much from this as you possibly can. So this is the question: did you bid? Have you bid? Wonderful picture of Wembley there, during its build stage. Certainly the build stage of all the hotels around there, which are all completed now. So within that, there will be lots of bids, not just the big companies, but lots of tenders that were taken up by small companies. So just an example. So quick exercise for two reasons. One is for you to have to think about what the answer to the question, also give me a chance to have a quick glass of water. But your experience in bidding, have you never tendered before? Have you completed a handful of tenders or regularly submitted bids and tenders? So if you put a 1, 2, or 3 in the chat, just to gauge where we all are, so if you could do that. And for those, if you want, for those that have answered a 2 or a 3, could you also put in your level of success, good, average, or bad? Just to give us some kind of, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just to give a gauge of where we are, and I'll have a see. So thank you. A majority, understandably, haven't tendered before. Anita, a handful, and you'd be good. Mirza, I hope I'm pronouncing everybody's name correctly. 2 and average. Nao, 2 and bad, or we'll try and improve that. There'll be reasons for that. Karim, regular submit bits and tender. Karim, I'd be interested in how you feel what you've achieved in now, how you think you've done. And Bradley, 2, most are still pending. Yes, there's time involved in this. But thank you for responding. That just gives us an idea of where you are. And it's an interesting mix of responses there. Thank you. So this is an open question. And again, I must stress on these, none of these interactions are a test. There are no right or wrong answers. But in your thoughts, why do organizations and from the purpose of this, we'll say a local authority. Why does an organisation go to tender, and what broadly do they look for in a provider? So give yourself a couple of seconds to think about that, and just pop some answers in the chat, just for your thoughts on the answer to those two questions. I tell it the legally required to. Yeah, in the public sector, that's absolutely true. There are some caveats around it in particular areas, but yes, essentially it's a legal requirement. But I suppose the other side of that, they do, but it's a case of what do they look for? And Morelli said it's give themselves a great pool of contractors. Yeah, a great pool for people to choose from, and do not have expertise product which are requested in the tender. I'm trying to understand, Dr. Prateep. Do you have do not have expertise product which are requested in tender? So are we saying they don't actually have the internal expertise? Yes, I think that's that. As hopefully I've understood your comment. Yeah, a lot of now there are less services that are actually managed. Thank you for confirming that. There are lots less services that are managed directly. The use of spending public money has been more efficient if they use contractors, and that's a fact. Whatever things you might have heard, it is a provable fact. Knowledge, experience in past projects, size of company, fair pricing. Right, that's this is it's very good. It's a fact. They will look at your history and how you provide to look various suppliers, price and quality. Yeah, so we could go on. So the reasons are varied, and thank you for your responses. But just to move on. One of the things here, especially on that second question about what do they look for, is you put yourself in the mind of the buyer. You write your bid from their perspective because, as it says, empathy is powerful. That's a really big deal. You've got to understand what it is they're after, and some of your ways of researching will answer some of that question, and we will nudge on some of these things later on. But putting yourself in the mind of the buyer in all respects is a good thing, but very particularly in the public sector. So these are our answers to these questions. It's not exhaustive. You enable a fair and objective comparison, which of course is essential. You minimize the risk in supply selection. Yes, because it's very important, again, to spending public money, and therefore they need to make sure that they've selected the correct companies to do the correct amount of work. Ensuring with compliance legislation and policies, absolutely, and terms and conditions. There are a whole series of areas of compliance and legislation which the local authority needs to stick to. And policies, both social, ethical, which they will want to make sure that they're adhering to. Achieve a sustainably competitive price. It's true, although I would stress here that the view here, just as a caveat, that this is a race to the bottom, that it's all on price, is not the case. We'll get more into it on the next one. But the fact of the matter is, you need to understand that the way tender responses are evaluated is based upon a combination of quality and price. There'll be a ratio that's you'll understand. It could be 60-40, 60 quality, 40 price. Sometimes it's as high as 70-80 quality and 20 price. Others in different areas are the exact opposite of that, but you always know. But the most important thing to understand is price is not the only factor that they're looking at. I must stress that. Deliver return on investment and or value for money. Yes. And deliver efficiencies, preferably those that can be measured. And I use a phrase about the two hats that we all wear. So we all wear two hats. We have one hat as a business owner and operator, where we're looking for the best deal for our business to make money and develop and grow. But we also have another hat, which is our hat at home, where we pay council tax and we pay all our other taxes and duties. And we want to be sure that our money is being spent wisely and the correct people are getting the business. So if you think about both those hats when you're responding, I think that's a very good way to look at this. So they're looking for companies businesses that understand what they're looking to achieve and the value that they might offer. So, and people say, how, especially in a crowded market, how do you stand out? You stand out by driving, as it says, that higher value, showing higher value, having an innovative way when possible to display that value. Your determination to carry out the work, how competent you are, how you can look to improve the service of communications and how you collaborate with your customer. finding a partner that fits them culturally, because they will want to work with a company that really wants to work with them and understands what they want to achieve. And how do you know what they want to achieve? We'll get to research later in this presentation. Access to reliable, accurate, and real-time data. Data is a big deal now. So if you build into your response, whether it's asked for it or not, and often it will ask for it, but even if it doesn't, that you can respond with data that can prove and show the success and process that you actually work with, that is a huge value. Your future focused expertise, that you're looking forward. You're not just thinking if say it's a 3-year contract, what can you do over those 3 years that can make things even better? For the customer, they'll certainly be looking at that. So what can you do? You're transparent and open with communications with a willingness to take up accountability. Yeah. So local authorities in particular are not the kind of customer where they deliver a contract and then let you get on with it. There'll be constant communication. And one of the things they're aware of is that sometimes there are problems, sometimes there are issues, and they'll want you to take accountability and come to them with solutions and talk to them about them. Much better to talk, and it's because things happen, and the more open you are and more transparent you are, the better the relationship you will have. You have a problem-solving ethic, which links with the previous comment, and you're looking to ensure the satisfaction of internal customer. So that is for them to understand with the local authority. They have their own internal customers, which might be political or otherwise. So it might be that their internal customer is the head of the council. It might be a different department within. You've got to understand what they're wanting to achieve and help them do it. At a national level, it may well be a minister is the internal customer if you're dealing with a large, I don't know, it's like some of the Department of Education, which I've worked with before. But the fact is, everybody has an internal customer and you want to help them please them. So first things first, because we are racing away. There is a supplier questionnaire. This is quite a detailed comment. This is something that's required for every single response you ever make. So you really only need to complete it once and then copy and paste. It is quite a detailed document. It's about the operation and the makeup of the company, who has control of the company, what the organization looks like from a financial point of view, how compliant you are in things like modern slavery, etc., that your supply chain is really, really clear. If you have a complex supply chain, they'll want to know what the supply chain looks like. And if you vetted your companies correctly, what your insurance requirements are, etc., etc. So it's a detailed document, but it should only need to be done once, but you have to do it, and you'll be expected for every response to have that. A form of tender, this initial on most, it's for public sector, something you sign at the beginning. A non-collusion certificate to prove that there's nothing underhand, that absolutely everything is above board. And then there's terminology, which ITT is an invitation to tender, a RFI, request for information, a request for a proposal, a pre-qualification questionnaire. These are things we'll get into more next week on the next webinar, so you understand some of this terminology, because you're going to see it a lot. You will be asked really searching questions often about your accounts and financials. You will have to provide them. And the reason for this is because, in simple terms, they want to know that you're a fit and proper company to spend public money with. And at the same time, the other side is they want to know that you're stable as much as possible. So if they offer you a 3-year contract, they want to be sure that you're still here in 3 years, because they don't want to reprocure. So they ask these questions for a good reason, but it's important that you understand that those questions are going to be asked. They'll ask for references. So start considering who in your network can provide references about your company and how it operates. Obviously, existing customers are a good example, but there are often others as well. What policies? If they're asking that you have to have policies, and they will ask policies on various areas, you need to provide them. If you haven't got them, then one of the things we can cover within within the brand program is making sure you have those policies in place. A pricing file. This is different for every single contract, and every different local authority asks these questions in different ways, but it will often be a spreadsheet, and it will ask you how your not just a price, how you break down the price and how different things are paid for. That is normally quite a complex document, quite off-putting at first. But again, we can go through this as part of the program so you understand how that works. And then in bold, quite rightly there, it says plan and allow sufficient time. We'll return to this, but all these things have a time limit. So, for example, a opportunity might be published on the 1st of February, and the response will need to be in on, and I'm just picking a date out of thin air, it needs to be in on Friday, the 24th of February at 12 noon. I know Friday is 24th of February because it's my birthday. But anyway, by the by, if the requirement is for your response to be in at 12 o'clock on Friday, the 24th of February, it absolutely has to be in. There'll be no extra time allowed for. And this whole process always takes more time than you might think. So our guidance is always to be ready the day before. So everything is ready and everything, you're happy with your entire response and all your documentation together, et cetera, for the day before. So in that hypothetical example, it would be ready for the 23rd of February at 12 o'clock. And then you've got 24 hours to do any final checks and then upload to a portal, which was what you'd actually have to do. Now for the real writing. Okay, so the top there is we come back to the same subject we were just talking about, allowing sufficient time and project manage your response carefully. What that means is, and it really covered in that second bullet, use a simple spreadsheet to track what you need to do and when you need to do it. This will be so useful, and stick to it and refer to it all the time to make sure that you don't run out of time, because time will just disappear. Who's on the bidding team that can help you? It may well be your bidding team is you, but try and get some external help. Again, Brandon can support you in the early stages of this. Check on your other stakeholders, both within your business and externals. If you have to use another, if you work with another, if you have a supplier rather, make sure they understand that if you're saying we can do this, that they understand what you're doing. Again, know the deadlines. Make that date really, really clear so you don't run out of time. And at the end there, make sure someone other than the writer proofreads your response before it's sent. Like any kind of writing of any kind, whenever you write something, you need somebody else to proofread it. The best kind of proofreader is somebody who's completely outside the loop on this response and knows very little about it. And then they can read through and make sure they get it and understand what it is that you are responding to. So, right, okay, I get it. I understand what you're saying, because that's what you need. The procurement team, which will be the first area that receive your response, often aren't the experts. They're just the first stage, and they need to understand. So the clarity of writing is really, really important. And again, we'll get into more of this, but a simple rule is if you're not asked a technical question, don't give a technical answer. It needs to be understood by anybody. Somebody really needs to get it. So that proofreading is really important to make sure that somebody outside your loop and maybe non-technical understands what you're saying. So a winning bid, at its core, it's the right price and follows the golden rules. But there are, to expand upon that, some other areas. So directly answers the questions according to the valuation criteria. Shows understanding of broader needs and objectives. Demonstrates a credible, competent solution. Confirms the benefit for the client. Includes evidence to support and convince. And is written cleanly, clearly, and precisely. So, actually, just a quick question. No, we don't get copies of the presentation, but this will actually will be going up on YouTube in the next few days. So you'll be able to reference to it there, as well as other presentations there. So it'll be going up there, but we don't actually share the deck. Okay, you're welcome. So although there are these different elements, for this webinar, we're just going to concentrate on these two areas. And we're going to get into these other four, a lot of it on the next webinar. So, fundamental golden rule. Excellent bids will usually win contracts. Poor bids usually lose contracts. It sounds really, really obvious. But the difference between an excellent and a poor bid isn't often as dramatic as it might sound. And the reason is, you look at those typical issues, providing incomplete answers or not understanding the question, The most essential thing to do in responding to a tender is to answer the question. And it says there, sounds self-evident. But anybody that's involved in this area knows they've seen lots of responses. I've read lots of responses that didn't answer the question or partly answer the question. So our guidance is you look at a question, you read it at least 3 times. So you fully understand what it is, mark down what the question, understand what it is they're asking, what information do they require, and you answer it absolutely fully, and then go back and double check again to make sure you've covered everything, because a partial answer can basically can scupper your chances of progression. In your answer, you need to make sure you focus on the customer, on the delivery, on the outcome, on the value that you're offering and what problem it solves for the customer, not on your business. You describe the features, but not the benefits, and that's associated. You talk about, well, we have this, we do that, but so what? So a phrase that to think about is you talk about what your business does, and 3 words will help you come up with the benefit. And those 3 words are, which means that. If you remember those 3 words, you don't actually have to use them, but if you put them in your head, you say, well, I'm going to simple solution. We have this machine which does this, which means that the benefit is this is it for your customer in very simple terms. Once you talked about the benefits of what you do and you've listed them, then you need to evidence them. And this is where case studies, testimonials, and reviews come in. There are lots of others, but as those top 4 are the main reasons why a tender response will be weak as against strong. And it goes back to that comment earlier about putting your head in the mind of the buyer. If you do that, then you'll start to make sure that you answer all these clearly. And then you got to a why, and this all references the why. Why choose us? And often, as I said, in a crowded market, if you're in a market where there's lots of other companies that do what you do, how do you make yourself stand out? So again, there are no wrong answers here, but have a think about why a local authority should choose your company as a supplier, and how can you show evidence that you've proven expertise in the services required. Just have a think about that and put some examples in the chat. Yeah, specialism. I would say, what does that mean though? So if you're a specialist, but what does that offer? So you're right. So you're a specialist. You demonstrate quality. What does you demonstrate quality? What does that mean for them? And so you're both Krim and Bradley there says you can demonstrable quality, sustainable and aligned with Society 2030 goals. Absolutely right. If they're the goals that they align with with that response, if that's looking like that's one of their goals is the goal that you're aiming to support, then if a lot of this is about relevance. If you say something, you put something in that's you feel is valuable, they has to be relevant to the goals and aims of that tender, but also the wider aims of and goals of and what maybe the plan is for that actual local authority. Proven expertise according to independent studies, refer to customer Google reviews. Well, you can refer to them or you can add some in. Now, you can actually put them in. Choose us because we previously delivered what you're looking to buy. Yep, as long as you can evidence that. This is innovative solutions. So tell it again, innovative solutions. So you have innovative solutions, which means that. So what's the benefit of those innovative solutions? Not saying there aren't there. I'm sure there are huge benefits, but you have to then go, right, okay, so that's what we have, which means that. And what does that mean to the customer? Are there any advantages, preferences of business registered with Brent Council or companies hiring employees from Brent Council? No. There is effectively, there is what I've always called an ethical wall. So no, there is, and this is where the non-collusion comes in. Relationships are important to start conversations, but no, the tender process is transparent and follows a strict scoring system. So there are advantages in building relationships. That's always good in business. But there are no advantages of the kind that you're referencing there. So just before we move, Janet, we focus specifically on diverse and social mobility candidates, which means that we can deliver according to your customers' requirements. Yeah, so you can expand a little bit more on that, but that's getting in the right area, Janet. It's getting into that, which means that, and that's how does that benefit? Okay, so really good. Thank you for that. So we'll move on now. So let me move the chat from there. Again, putting yourself in the mind of the buyer. This is what this is all about. You sit, you look through their eyes, you understand what they're trying to achieve. Often at the beginning of the invitation to tender, they'll actually give an introduction to explain what it is they're trying to, maybe part of the bigger picture, that what this tender may well be something, part of something much, much bigger, and understanding what it is or tell you what they're trying to achieve, and referencing that and making it relevant throughout your response will mean that you understood what they're after. And that's where the empathy comes in. So reasons why a potential customer could choose you. How do they know the client? Do they have a relationship? That's, again, relationships are perfectly fine. There's no issues with having a relationship. You still have to go through the process. Evidence, case studies, testimonials, references, these are gold, absolute gold. And you can't really expect to move forward on your own without this. We will get into this actually. I think it's, and I know I keep mentioning the later stages of this program, but it is important to understand it is a program. This isn't complete, that by the end of this you'll know everything. But for those of you that maybe are new or young companies and thinking that, oh, we can't enter this because we're a new company, there are ways of being involved in this, even if you're a small new company, by partnering with others. We'll get into how that works, because so there are still values there. If you're a young company, maybe with a really good solution, and you don't necessarily have long lists of case studies and testimonials, but you have something to offer, there are still opportunities there. So where can they find this evidence? Can you point them to it? Can you provide it directly? Can you demonstrate expertise and experience in the sector? Have you worked on similar contracts? Can you show what value added? They're all really strong. And the knowledge and experience of your team. They'll ask about your team. They'll ask about the resource you have, and they'll look at your experience. They will sometimes ask you for a CV. They don't necessarily mean a traditional CV that goes back to what your school exams were. What they're talking about is, I often call these kind of pen portraits rather than a CV. They want to know what relevant experience you have, and the relevance is what experience do you have, or does your team have, that's relevant to delivering this contract. So if it's not relevant, then take it out and make sure that the information you provide is the information that's relevant, that they're going to go, right, okay, these are a fit and proper company to work with for all these reasons, and they have the experience and they have the right number of people to deliver this actual contract. So coming back to the answering the right questions and providing the right information, is it enough? And people do this, and I all sorts of things. They will effectively supply their brochure. Is that enough? Absolutely not. A brochure is the last thing you should provide. Mainly because brochures are generic and websites tend to be generic. You may say lots of things about what you do that we claim by your competitors, and you must turn that generic language into focused, value-driven narrative evidence to score the highest marks. This is the differentiator. And so how do you stand out? You stand out by responding much, much better, and in a far more focused fashion than your competitors. And this is the secret sauce, but it's not magic. And it's a learned skill. If you learn how to do this, and you will throughout this program understand how this operates, that you change the language from being generic about how great your company is to what you deliver and the difference you can make and the problems you can solve and how you want to partner and how you understand what their goals are and how you can help them get there if you work with us. That's the kind of language that you need. And it's really that shift in focus of how you respond is how responses get scored very, very highly. And this might seem, we're driving something home in this presentation. So you can see there is a real theme here. Understanding what you're being asked and the objectives are critical to writing a winning answer. These are things to really get deeply in before you go any further, to understand that this is all about what value you can offer, what problem you solve, how do you make life easier for them to deliver something, and how do you demonstrate that you understand what their objectives are. You've got to make it, view it more of a partnership, that you're working with them to help them deliver something, not just looking for business for your business and growth. Obviously, that's part of it. And the thing is, they know that. They understand you're a commercial operation, but their drivers are different from a commercial. They need to deliver something on behalf of the public. So we understand the objectives and the drivers that the project needs to relate to. This will often be on the invitation to tender document, and let's actually make it quite clear what the absolute needs of the project are. Again, that should be demonstrated quite well. And what is thought added value? As it says, they're not nice to have. What genuine added value? What can you do? And it's not always possible, but you can always try and find something. What is thought that you added value that you can add as an organization or a company when you're responding, that will just show that you just understand, you can offer that little bit extra. And you can do this just with the way that you explain things, on the information you can provide. For example, we mentioned data. So any kind of service, it doesn't matter what it is, you can always have some data of some form and say, we will update you on this on, say, a weekly or monthly basis, depending on how the project works. And it will do this, and we will supply this information to you because this will be of great use to you. That's an example, a very simple example of how you can add extra value. So understand the objectives and needs, and I've mentioned this already. They tell you in the invitation to tender. You study. What will often happen is, this isn't a test paper. It's not an exam that you need to go through and answer the questions as soon as possible. You need to put time aside and you need to consider this. And the very first thing you need to consider is the information before the questions, where they explain who they are, what they are, and what it is they're trying to achieve. Read that and really, really understand it before you start answering the questions, because that information should inform how you answer. So understanding that is really important. And if you don't clearly understand it necessarily, or there's something unclear, there is an opportunity through every procurement process to ask questions. Often what you'll do, in order to be able to download the information you need, you will join a portal. It'll be a free portal. You'll register it, put your basic details in. Then you will download all the documentation that you need, including the invitation to tender. There will be, in say let's say an 8-week procurement process, there should be 2 weeks of that where, and I'm kind of making this up, but just give you an idea, 2 weeks of that where you'll be able to ask questions and get them answered. The way that works is, you ask a question on the portal, was an opportunity, and that question is anonymous. They will answer on the portal anonymously. Everybody will see those answers. So you get your question answered. You also get to see questions and answers from other organizations, again, anonymously, but it can be really fascinating. You might actually have somebody's asked the same question as you before you ask it. But that process for clarifying what it says about the specification, or maybe understanding a specific question, is something you really need to take advantage of, because if you're not sure, then there's a possibility you might go down the wrong path. You can carry out research, and we'll get to research in a second. Research is hugely valuable and actually is relatively easy in the public sector to improve your understanding. And we can clarify the client requirement. Again, through the Q&A process, you can clarify that. So maximizing your score, everything is scored. The scoring system generally is quite simple, but question, you correctly identify the question, and let's make it easy to understand. So you understand what you're trying to answer. You establish how you structure your answer, and you will score fewer marks if you partially answer a question. There's really no excuse, if I'm honest with you. This is a basic mistake, and as we referenced before, you need to answer the question in full and make sure that you answer the question in full, and then get somebody else to read that question and answer to make sure they identify that every element of that question has been answered. So, as an exercise here, if you just read that, this is from a real bid, and have a read through and see and count them. How many elements must the answer address? And there'll be no comments on anybody who gets this wrong, but read through and see how many things you need to answer, and put a number in the chat, or you can pick out an example if you wish of what. Not spend too long on this because I've got my eye on the clock. But just have a think about that. Okay, so 8. Okay, 9. Okay, 6. Well, in our view, in our evaluation of this, the correct answer is 6. That's what we identified. And what we identified here, and we've done it, showing blue. So the high-level description of the structure of the company, structure of the division or part of the company responsible for delivering the services, the number of people in each team, description of the resources expected to deliver the proposed solution, describe other key contracts being delivered in a similar time frame, and how any resource conflicts will be managed. So they're the ones we picked out, and that's from a real. And the thing is, as you can see here, if you do this, if you pick out what's required, then it's really, really clear. You can reference back and say, right, okay, we need to make sure we cover all those examples. It's a really good exercise, but it shows in that kind of just a couple of paragraphs here about what's the work that's actually required to answer this question. It's quite a complex question. So I mentioned scoring. Say the scoring system is usually quite straightforward, from a 0 to a 5. We're not going to even discuss the possibility of getting a 0, because that basically means you've not done anything. Let's start at the top. A score of 5. A well-defined solution linked to clear benefits backed by strong evidence. Quantification has been included, which shows clear value. In other words, you can demonstrate and prove everything you're saying. Then you're or not just answering the question, but you're also showing the value that you'll offer, that you understand the customer, and you're demonstrating clearly that you are a company that wants to work with them and help them deliver what they need to deliver at the right price, at the right quality. That's the absolute gold standard, and that's what every response should be aiming for. So score of 4, a good solution, benefits shown with reasonable evidence, some value through quantification. Both of those things are correctable. Evidence could always be better. And from a quantification point of view, you should be looking at making sure that you show you show that really, really clearly. If it's not strong enough, if somebody else has said, then look to make it, improve it in every possible way. When we get down to like a score of 3, we're now getting to areas where you'll struggle to do particularly well in your response. As I said, the answer describes solution adequately with some benefit. There's reasonable evidence, but you're not showing any value. So you're not looking through their eyes and showing them and demonstrating to them when they're reading your response that kind of, which means that. So what does that mean? What do you do that makes things better? What problem do you solve, and how do you make it better? How do you make the outcome better? And when you get down to 2 and 1, it just gets weaker and weaker. So really, you should be looking for 5s and 4s, and you really obviously should be aiming for 5. But it's not rocket science. This isn't easy, but it's not impossible. It takes some work, as it should do. And one of the things you should think about is, think about your competitor. If you put the work in and they don't, again, that's a differentiator. So put the work in, make sure you've answered everything really, really clearly, show the value, make sure that you can quantify it really, really clearly. You can evidence it in every possible way. You demonstrate the value so that it jumps off the page or the screen, as it may well be. Because bear in mind, you're dealing with people. And a quick comparison so you understand, it's not like putting your CV into Indeed where it goes through an algorithm and they pick out words and decide. We're not in that. There's no AI around this yet. At some point in the future, there might be something. But so to be really, really clear, when you respond to a tender, it's going to be evaluated by a person or by people. So in that response, you need to build that connection so they understand that you are a company that they want to work with. And that's what you really need to demonstrate. And that's what a score of 5 will do. Okay, researching the client. What potential source of information on a customer, and when doing research, what information you're looking for. So a really good example here, is write down the information you need and where you could get this. So because we're watching time, feel free to put some notes in the chat, because it's something you need to think of. What potential sources do you think on a customer? I mean, you can think about a commercial customer, and you can also, we'll do some comparison to a local authority. Feel free to put something in the chat. We'll reference some. And then when doing your research, what information are you looking for? So we'll do an example with brand doing. If you want to do some research on brand doing, then this is the team. And it's quite straightforward to go onto their website. And as it knows, their website, LinkedIn, Google search, news search, absolutely right. So you can do some research on the people involved in brand doing. And, it is a very, very interesting point there. It's their view of the world. So brand doing's view of themselves. And you can go onto a LinkedIn page, which again is a similar thing. It's their view and what they choose to share, and what they show to show how credible they are, and the companies they work with and what they deliver, etc. And for a company like Brand Doing, you have Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. There are lots of different ways of seeing their view of the world. However, when you go into the local authority, it's slightly different. In fact, actually, it's more than slightly different. Local authorities and government at all level has a responsibility to be really clear on their information about their structure, how they work, what their business plan is, what their aims are, what they spend their money on, what their budgets are, etc., the services. Which means that local authority websites are hugely valuable. So you're looking what's new in their world, what they're proud of, and what are they talking about at the moment. So when you're looking into a local council or a local authority, it's actually, you can get an enormous amount of information. Look for that's relevant to this tender response to then help you respond where relevant. Don't just put in that's not relevant, but where it's relevant, it's hugely valuable. If you really push, you can even get minutes of meetings if you really wanted to go to that level. But the websites are an amazing resource. So let's talk about that. So this is a page from a local authority website. I don't know which one, but they all look pretty much the same. So they're talking here about high value contracts, what the value is. They're talking about the legislation, the council constitution, etc. This is from Watford. It's a page from Watford. And it says here, all public bodies, including Watford Council, are required to advertise contracts over 25,000. I think that, Now's might correct me, I think that's gone up. And they say they're Delta Resourcing, which is a portal. They're giving you, this is just bits of information to start off with, but there is so much there. Do you have any contacts there you can talk to? Who is doing the buying, influencing, making decisions? That information will be on there if you search for it. But it says what drives them. There'll often be something, they might call it business plan, they might call it a future plan, but you'll see what it is that they're looking to achieve over the next 3, 5, sometimes 10 years, certainly through the life of the government. And it means you can see how this tender that you're looking to respond to, how does that fit in with this bigger picture and understanding what their aims are. And this, again, will help your response. Again, in Watford, you see all these different amounts of information, all different ways of finding out from like Three Rivers District Council, small council. Again, their website will show lots of information. Hertfordshire County Council, a lot more. The contracts for procurement at Watford, so you have people that you can contact. So researching your sources. Well, the bid document, the documentation, your internal resources and knowledge, if you've done previous bids, an annual report from the council, sites such as Glassdoor, which are a great resource. Google Alerts, if you haven't used Google Alerts, we haven't got time to go into that, but Google Alerts are really, really fabulous way of finding out information. From news, from attending events, and obviously this is just come back to the Meet the Buyer events and the other events available to you through this Fit to Bid program, taking advantage of those, attending events and conferences, sector federations, government papers, published minutes, sometimes credit reference agencies if you have access, and competitor websites are also. That's something we'll get into next. So competitor websites can be really valuable to understand what's going on or to help you. So there is a huge amount of research. This is where the internet is hugely valuable. A few years ago, this would have been very difficult to do. Now, a bit of time spent while you're looking at your response will, again, improve your content because you'll understand more about the market that you're in, the other companies that is involved, and your customer, your potential customer in the local authority or council. It's, to be honest with you, it's too easy not to do. A bit of research, an hour, a couple of hours spent doing this, or maybe a bit more if you really want to, will be of massive value. So what to look for? Well, you're looking for their strategy. They should have a strategy document that might be called many different things. What their visions and values are, to make sure that yours align, and where you can, that you reference these in your response. What the philosophy, their views and opinions are, what they deem to be important. It's all kind of part of the same thing. What challenges and goals they might have had, what changes in the market, etc., etc. The language they use for other opportunities, so you can reflect back to them the language that they use, which is again, we'll get into more on the next two webinars about reflecting language. It's a really valuable tool, or a skill to learn how to do that. If they have a definition of a good supplier, and making sure that you align to that. Understanding what their key people are, their facts, what the results, metrics, all this stuff will be on their website. If there are relevant quotes, who said what, how can you reference that, and then any kind of personal motivations. So the more you know about your clients, and this goes for all business, but the fact is, in the public sector, because so much of this is published, it's so much easier. In the commercial world, you have, as it was referenced when we were looking at Brandewin, is Brandewin's view of themselves. Whereas in the public sector, it's a lot more transparent. Not, I'm accusing Brandewin of being not transparent, but it's different. They have a responsibility to be really transparent with all their information, which a commercial company doesn't have to. So, just briefly now, these are examples. Now, we're taking all. I know that's a lot of information that I've given you, and your head's probably spinning a little by now. But these are examples of companies that Brandewin have worked with that have benefited from this program and other programs. And so this is a company called the Pallets Yard, and they have benefited from following the skills webinars, and going to Meet the Buyer event. And they've achieved Team Heathrow status. So they work with Heathrow and Bradford Swissport. And this is, amazing. This is from working with Brandewin, and then and this is the point, putting the work in to put all this theory into practice. Another case study, J&L Cleaning Services. This is a great one. I've worked with lots of cleaning companies over the time. This is a very, very competitive market. And is one where really, it's a really good example of where you need to stand out. Your response needs to be excellent, because there are so many cleaning companies and there are so many cleaning contracts. Again, the value gained from the one-to-one sessions, tender advice sessions, and essentially look forward to participating in future programs, because absolutely Sarah, or it might be Zara, threw herself into this and got the benefits from it. So it's all there for you. So again, I urge you to stay through the program and take advantage of everything that you can. So as you can see here, there are lots of different factors to this program. For me personally, it's the first three that I'm involved in directly. So we're on the foundation now. On 23rd, improve your bid response, that goes into more detail of what a tender response looks like and into terminology. And then a final writing public sector bid and tenders, again, just to add more detail on that on the 30th. But as you can see, it then follows up with how to evaluate your tender business model and other areas, and culminating with the pitch of success, prepare to meet the buyer, and then the wealth building summit and meet the buyer event at Brent Civic Centre, which is I'm going to try and get down there myself. It's hard because I'm up in the north of England, but I will try and get down there myself, because these are great events. But again, I urge you to make the time, put it in your diary, and make sure that you go, because the value from going there is difficult to put into words. If you make the most of it, the connections that you'll make there will be of huge value to you. So, as I said, that's something going to be there. Brent Council at Heathrow, NHS, Northwest London Procurement shows the HS2, Old Common. I don't know what Old Common is, but obviously it's funded by the Mayor of London, and something that Brandewin are directly involved in. It's going to be something that is, like I said, is huge value to you. Even it's just understanding how this works, meeting the people involved in this. Again, we'll remove some of the mystery, put some faces to some names, and you never know what might happen just by finding yourself out there. Before you get there, though, make the most of all these different elements that on the run up to that Meet the Buyer event and the Wealth Summit, so you can understand how you can take advantage of the opportunities made available to you. There are previous bid skills workshops and other so that O.com is an HS2 major news station. But thank you for that, Nazar. I didn't know that because I'm obviously out the loop, but thank you. Yes, so obviously a very, very good thing to be involved in. Thank you. So there is a Brandoing YouTube channel. If you go onto YouTube and just type in Brandoing, there's a whole series of this one will be on in a few days. There are other ones across different areas, not just to do with Fit to Bid, but also to do with other things that really, really interesting. Some of my colleagues at Brandoing delivered. But this particular one will be available certainly within the week on the YouTube channel for you to go back and reference. Well, you're welcome now. Thank you. So just about to wrap up and say, just before we finish off, these confidential one-to-one sessions, again, make the most of them. There is an action card that we filled in as part of the part of that conversation, and it's to help focus what you do and what you need to do to get into the right position to respond to these and win these contracts. It's all about winning these contracts and growing your business. That's what we want, and there's also looking to get more people employed, etc. So that's also a focus of this. So it's make sure these one-to-one sessions, set some time. You should have if you haven't yet, you'll be contacted soon to get involved in that. I realize we are a couple of minutes over time. So thank you for your patience, and I hope you've got something out of this and really enjoyed it. There are a whole load of learning resources available through Brandoing. As you can see, the two particular ones, the submission guidelines and the writing expression of interest template. There's a whole series of other, all available for you. And again, these resources are priceless. So really make sure you get as much out, work with your other contacts through Brandoing. And Tracy James's number's there, the Fit to Bid website. Make sure you stay in touch. Take advantage of everything you possibly can. I urge you to. And thank you very much for finding the time to stay with me for this little over an hour. If there are any other questions, I will stay on for a minute. If there's any other questions, feel free to put some in the chat. Otherwise, you'll have plenty of opportunity through your contact with Brandoing and your local authority to get the questions answered. Thank you so much for your time.